Welcome to my digital nomad recap for the month of October 2021. So I'm actually filming this, you guys, in my Airbnb in Mexico City, and it's an incredible stay in San Pedro Los Pinos with Sarah and Veronica, and I'll put the link in the chat. And sometimes it works for me to do my recaps in the country where I'm in for that month, but in this case it didn't, and sometimes depending on content and travel it doesn't. So the entire month of October I actually was in Honduras. So the entire month I stayed in one place, and I'm referencing, so in the show notes you guys can also click, and in the link in the bottom, you can also see my digital nomad recap in October, where you can see quite a bit. So if you didn't know, I'm Katrina Julia. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur and transformation coach. And I actually left Atlanta, Georgia, December 31st, and I've been traveling all of 2021. So I've been creating and traveling throughout Central America so far, with South America on the horizon. And I've been in Costa Rica this year, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Costa Rica again, and more. So you can definitely check that out. And just as a whole, how Honduras even came on my radar was through a press trip, through a platform called Workaway. So you definitely want to check out my 75 plus tools to create a life and business you love if you haven't yet. And Workaway is one of those platforms. And back in May, when I was in Tulum for about 3 months, I came across a press trip project in Honduras at Hotel Sandoval. So years ago, Honduras was on my list to definitely go diving and or free diving like I ended up doing, but I never imagined I would spend a month across destinations like Ocotepeque, which I had never heard of before, San Pedro Sula, also never heard of, and Roatan for my birthday and free diving. So let's get into some details. Oh, and fun fact, and another nice surprise, I ended up staying in recycled containers in San Pedro Sula that I found on Airbnb with Vega Community, with Veronica and Gabrielle, and that ended up turning into a project with business consulting, digital marketing, and a press trip as well for over a month. So you guys will be able to see on the link too, you'll see the picture of me, Gabrielle, and Veronica as well. So a lot of surprises in the month of October. So my monthly recaps include stays, creating with community creators and creatives. So you can see how I'm organizing my business, my brain, and this is ever changing, you guys. Like, I'm always looking to grow and learn, wins in progress, adventures, and any final highlights that I want to share. So in the month of October, I stayed in the recycled containers. I also stayed in, so my press trip with Hotel Sandoval started September 16th and ended on October 1st. And I ended up going to El Salvador first. So you can see that on the month before recap for the month of September. And on October 1st, I literally ended up at the recycled containers, originally via Airbnb for a few days. Then I went to an Airbnb Posada Arcoiris in Roatan for 3 nights and 4 days for my birthday. Then I ended up going back to San Pedro Sula with Veronica and Gabrielle on a hosted press trip and digital marketing and business consulting. So you can definitely check out the videos on the stay with the recycled containers, on the stay with Roatan, and I ended up being hosted in a tiny house within the Vega community as well for about a week once that became available from a tenant they had. So in the month of October, I accelerated a lot with faith, with works, with investors, proposals, and pitches, reaching over 6 figures in pipeline on ClickUp. So what does that mean? That means proposals in process, ongoing work in process of 6+ figures. Disclaimer, not yet to 5 figures or 6 figures ongoing. I have saved, as far as in living expenses and costs, dramatically this year compared to last year, in facing finances and facing fears, and not only having adventure with travel, but also recognizing where, you guys, there's such different ways of living depending on what you're open to and the experiences you allow yourself to have. And also launches and vision for online courses. And this is all done in the midst of not the best of financial circumstances at all. So a lot of humility that I'm sharing with, beyond, even though putting in all this action and staying faithful and committed and consistent and disciplined and diligent, having had to borrow money more from my family than I ever imagined, and at the same time being humbled and grateful, but it also not feeling good, which is pushing me to be and do more and to start giving them back money as soon as possible again, with extensive humility, grace, and help from every direction. If you guys haven't, you may definitely want to check out my sponsored post from IntelliFluence and debt consolidation on budgeting and 7 steps to budget like a boss. That is recent on the blog and on the show. And so, creating a life and business you love with community to creatives. So there's several images on the blog and on the show, and you can definitely take a peek more with Veronica and Gabrielle, with the recycled containers, with my free diving, and even more, if that interests you. And if you're curious about my morning routine, there's a hyperlinked blog on my Sacred 7 morning and Sacred 7 night. And then my super focus. So my super focus keeps me anchored until I hit it consistently, and then I'm shifting. So disclaimer, I have not yet achieved these goals as of November 13th. However, there is increased practical proof that I'm getting there, and shifts in every area with proposals, interviews, and applications, and I'm staying coachable and persistent. So the goal is, I'm creating a life, business, and community I love. I'm receiving $3,000 to $25,000 daily to weekly to monthly easily for wellness, media, business, online, and travel. God willing, with incredible aligned community. Consistently October, I am DAP supervisor and world team with Herbalife in October. So some of these, like DAP, I've hit, but then some of these I have proposals in process, but the cash flow not there yet, or I have money saved as far as in living expenses and cutting living expenses, but the cash flow not being there yet. So I see movement forward, proposals forward, interviews forward, but not fully in manifestation yet, and staying faithful that it is here now, that it is coming, it's on its way to me now in the natural, and staying consistent and trusting God in the process. So my top 3 priorities: community, sources, and scaling. So as an example, I just got off of a call with an incredible influencer marketing platform that I've used for over 2 years, and potentially for 1 of 2 ongoing roles with consistent cash flow every single month. And it's funny because it's already stuff I do in the campaigns I manage, but now it would be not just me doing it for our brand, but also for other multiple brands, and learning a ton. And then scaling. An example of something I scaled in the month of October is I scaled my videos into audio, and my audio into being loaded in my podcast, Create with Katrina Julia, along with 50 to 100 plus tasks to our virtual assistant. So I'm always either automating and or delegating, which in essence means scaling and time freedom. And so speaking of, number 2 is creators with courses in management, where I teach that on a creator basis. And then last but definitely not least, And that's also including retreats and things like that. But last and definitely not least is creative. So things like media, updating my platform and books on Wattpad and other platforms like that. Also doing videos like this on YouTube, the podcast, the blog, etc. So as a whole, you guys, and again, disclaimer, not typical, but possible, I started developing dashboards back in 2008 in corporate America using tools like SharePoint and Excel. And now I've been using this year an incredible tool called ClickUp, which you can use for project management, but they also have an incredible dashboard tool, okay? And so I expanded the dashboard this past month to not only include proposal figures, but also interview figures, meaning things that are transitioning from the proposal into a meeting or an interview for ongoing work. And in the month of October, I ended up getting feedback on Seed Fund and an NSF grant, which is millions, and I'm resubmitting that. Founder Made, Food Revolution Network ended up being migrated to an interview and a meeting. Paro, which is an accounting ongoing based platform. If you don't know, I'm also a CPA and I have a lot of experience in finance. And Indeed, with lots of applications for our wellness coaches, varsity tutors, and more. So let me talk about that. Here's the focus. How are you managing things with Fit Life Creation? How are you also doing this? And remember, you guys, one, that goes to automating and scaling, that over 80% of the business is automated and delegated already. And I am consistently taking 3 minimum actions on that day to day. But at the same time, I realized, especially this year, and a lot of this came from the Crazy Faith series and quiet time, with prayer, is that every step we take and every way we serve leads to another step. And I realized this year, especially, that I said, wait a minute, I haven't been fully serving in all my gifts, talents, and abilities and laying it out there like I did years ago. And I think that's part of my path and part of many of our paths to, yes, focus and yes, have a desire and passion and purpose. But sometimes in the meantime, that means serving or being submitted to others' missions, or that means there's more skills that you need to learn. And especially when you don't see things yet transitioning. And for example, this month in November, I realized, wait a minute, let me go back and serving with Financial Peace University. I'm focusing on financial freedom. I'm focusing on paying off debt. And the last time I led a class was about a year ago. And I thought, wait a minute, that's another area I can serve, and launching a class before Black Friday with people to prevent them from walking into more debt or making unwise financial decisions, and helping others be set free financially too. So part of that is, I don't know about you, friend, but I have zero desire to take any sense of financial struggle into 2022. So as a result, I'm praying avidly, unleashing practical line action daily. A lot of my expenses were cut this year through travel, through press trips, through negotiating long-term stays. And then I'm praying and pursuing financial freedom from the inside out, and focusing on abundance and trusting God and trusting the process, that manifesting into the natural. And one of my goals is to pay off over 6 figures of debt, being fully transparent, 2022 into 2023, if not sooner. And some of the ways that the outreach is being done and business development is also, we're over halfway done with Fortune 500 contacts on LinkedIn. And then I mentioned also the Honduras press trips, features with media on KLM Connect, publications with Hidden Lemure magazine, National Geographic, responses to some of my pitches and things in progress, a project with Colombia, likely in December, although my computer is having screen issues, and I'm praying and hoping that Apple responds avidly in Mexico City. I went on Tuesday, still waiting for them to get in contact with me, and I reached out to Apple Corporate yesterday. So that's in process. And then progress, including an intensifying focus with an 80-20 approach. creators, including launches and collaborations with coaches, bloggers, social media gurus. In October, I launched the Creation Club Mastermind again, and there's more coming up with the Create It Summit in November and December, and the club. And then the creatives. This includes 9-to-5ers, side hustlers, and those that want to become full-time with an online business, and those that want to increase travel. So in the month of October, I published 5 blogs, 10 podcast episodes, over 25 Instagram reels, over 7 videos, and worked on my book. Full disclaimer, in case you missed it, let me say it again. I am not at 5 or 6 figures yet. The decrease in expenses is well over 5 figures annually. It's a minimum of over 20,000 literally compared to last year. And the increase in proposals of over 6 figures, especially going into September and October and now November. And then adventures. So what happened in October? So I am in awe and wonder at our creator and the adventures I got to have in October. So since I may show you better rather than tell you, you can take a look at the videos and pictures of my reserve cacao farm and a hike in San Pedro Sula. And my favorite in October, which I definitely recommend you check out the videos on free diving. I free dove, you guys, about 30 feet on my first free diving lesson. That means diving with one breath, without a tank, without any compressed air. And you may have read or heard in the past, I also am an advanced certified scuba diver, but the last several times I've dived, I felt severely dehydrated from the compressed air, got headaches after, and just carrying the equipment. And I thought, there's gotta be a better, more enjoyable way for me to do this. Now, granted, with scuba, you get to be underwater longer. The equipment is weightless while you're underwater, so it depends on your preferences. But if free diving is definitely, you're curious about, check that out. And I also got to snorkel in Roatan, you guys, which is amazing. Some of the best snorkeling in the world. And visited West Bay and West End Beach. So as a whole, and if you haven't yet, definitely check out my top 10 and my one-day guides on the blog and on the show. Comment down below, you guys, with what you got, whether it's the super focus, whether it's the 3 priorities on community creators and creatives, whether it's some of the adventures I'm having, whether it's my walk with walking to financial freedom. And along those lines, you guys, share with others that maybe need to hear this in some way, expanding their way of thinking and decreasing expenses. Would love to hear. And if you leave a review on the podcast, I will shout you out on the video and or on the show. And if you tag me on social media at Katrina Julia Fit, at Fit Life Creation, we'll definitely reshare. And as always, guys, remember, create, transform, and inspire. You are born to.